Thank you. Evening everybody, welcome to the Regeneration and Housing Scrutiny Review Board. Today's date is 28th of June. We've got a very light agenda for today, but first of all I will take apologies if I can.
Apologies from David Fletcher, Maria Murphy, and I think you said Councillor Pandy?
Yes, Councillor Pandy. Any other from the floor? Are we all here? Lovely, thank you. I've not been made aware of any late items. There are none. Excellent. Declarations of interests. Any members are invited to declare any interest they have in the business on the agenda today. Anybody that potentially have anything? Lovely. Minutes from the meeting held on the 15th of March. As new chair to the committee, I wasn't in attendance at that meeting. Are there any members here that can confirm those minutes?
Yes, so I was at the last meeting, and as far as I can see, the minutes are correct.
Excellent, thank you very much. Do we need a second, or are we okay with that in these processes? Okay, so our main item for this evening is to discuss the work programme topic review for 2022-23. The item itself, item 5, details their sort of remit around what it is that we as a committee need to continue to do. There are a number of areas there highlighted in 4.2 that make it very clear of our remit in relation to what this board covers. They include economic development, regeneration of major projects, traffic and transportation, highways and engineering, planning, Derby homes, Derby advice, housing options and homelessness, and strategic housing. So there's a wide variety there, and in terms of the current work programme, the items on that have been clarified so far for the 18th of October is the Smart Park update, which is put in there as a provisional item for us to consider. There are some other items that have been put in to consider for future meetings, which is the climate change mitigation beyond OCOR and the CO2 emissions, and a update from Marketing Derby. I'd like to take any suggestions from the floor first. Yes, please, Councillor West.
Thanks, Chair. Can I firstly ask why there's nothing on the agenda for today to scrutinise? Having a scrutiny meeting with nothing to scrutinise seems like a complete waste of time. And given there were 2 items for future meetings, one of which I think has been there since the end of the 2020-21 year for consideration, is incredibly disappointing. The one that's been there the longest, I believe, is the climate change. I think Marketing Derby was one that was added in at the start of last year.
I've been told that the climate change meeting is to be arranged. It's a joint meeting with communities, and it's in the process of being arranged, and they will notify us of the date for that one. And as for Marketing Derby update, I can get it to the next meeting, if that's what councillors want.
Yeah, I would absolutely acknowledge what you're saying there, Councillor West. It's something that I wanted to bring up myself. There is a need for us, the officers are here to guide us in terms of what is coming up in the future. I think it is getting to that point where we need to be more proactive and have a plan that we anticipate that things are brought to us with that. I agree that there's been a number of items that I feel have been sent straight to overview and scrutiny rather than coming through the correct protocols, if you like, and coming through to us as a scrutiny board for us to do our role appropriately. Obviously, I'm completely new to the chairmanship, and I do think it's something that we need to challenge back to officers, that we need to be given that time, and it may be that I think there's some issues in the past around when our meetings fall and when this information becomes available, etc. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful of, that potentially if we need to hold or move a meeting date, then I'm sure that many of us here would be happy to do that, to accommodate, to make sure that we can give the scrutiny that is needed. But also the fact that we would like things to be brought to us in a much more timely manner, and the details of those reports are given to us as a scrutiny board to do that, and I completely echo your concerns that those things haven't been brought to us today.
Was there not a pre-meet for this meeting? Because my understanding from last year's meeting was that there were pre-meets held before the meetings with items then put on the agenda. And as I say, I'm really pleased that you share the frustration, but when members have been waiting, or the members that were on this board from the last year have been waiting for a year to have some of these items brought to us, it is really frustrating. We had 4 meetings last year, one of them lasted 25 minutes. I'm not wanting to have another year where we come to these meetings and we don't scrutinise things. There's a lot of stuff out there to be scrutinised. I know that I've got a list of things that I want to bring to you as potentials, but we had no topic review last year. We had a topic suggested and nothing happened on it. It's incredibly frustrating to bring these things that need to be scrutinised, that need to be looked at for the city, and then we sit here for 20 minutes and go home again. It's a waste of time for officers and it's a waste of time for us.
100% agree. Again, I think it's the responsibility of the chair to make sure that these things are followed up and followed through. I commit to making sure that we do going forward. If we have reviews and we have things going that are coming up, obviously in terms of, I've only been on it since our AGM, so the timings have been quite challenging for me, but going forward, absolutely, we will start to have pre-meets or conversations. I'd be happy to hold, pre-meets with any members of this committee that would be willing to have be involved, not just our vice chair, but anything that we need to bring forward. I will commit to speaking to office in advance, making sure that these things are brought forward, and if there are things that aren't being brought, we need a very good explanation as to why these things aren't being brought to us, and the rationale for why these things have been delayed, specifically around topic reviews and things like that. I myself have a couple of suggestions, but I would like to hear from the floor tonight first, and hopefully you'll have covered off everything that I have on my own list. But I think it's important that, like you say, I do not expect these meetings to be 25 minutes. Anybody that comes here today and thinks this is going to be a 25-minute meeting every time, I can assure you that they're probably going to be as long as audit and accounts used to be. So be ready, because ultimately we have the time. That's what we're here to do. We're here to scrutinise effectively, efficiently, and officers are there for us to be able to do that. So, trust me, they will not be 25-minute meetings going forward, Mr. Councillor West.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate that, you're sort of new to this committee, but one of the things that we discussed last time around was having additional meetings, because 4 or 5 meetings in a year really aren't enough. And what happens sort of consequently is that we get to the stage where something is going to be done, and then a new committee comes in and we start all over again. I appreciate the fact that this year would probably be the last in such case, that after the sort of 4 yearly elections we may get a more stable committee. But certainly you should look at maybe having 1 or 2 extra meetings to make sure that our program is carried through in the municipal year, rather than somebody new coming onto it. I mean, as you yourself can appreciate, the previous chair's gone, you've come along, and who knows what might happen next year again. So it would be nice, as Councillor West said, to at least come to some kind of resolution or outcome for 1 or 2 of the topics. So it should be a material consideration to have extra meetings.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult, as you mentioned, for me to implement this, but a suggestion might be going forward that we have almost a 2-year plan rather than a 1-year plan of things that are going to roll on. Obviously, even whether I'm the chair or somebody else is, I think there needs to be a scale of timescales. We know that officers are busy. We know that officers have got an awful lot of, we are not the only demand on officer time. So we need to make sure that the scales of the workload that we're given is appropriate, but also that they're given the time to get that information back to us. So I think it's, we've got to be realistic in that, but absolutely I agree. If there are times that we need to input additional meetings into this, I will be raising additional meetings where appropriate and with the approval of members of the committee. So going back to my original question then, obviously we've looked at the items that are currently on the agenda. I've mentioned the topics that we cover as a committee. Can I take any suggestions from the floor of areas that we would like to prioritise and any potential topic reviews? Thank you, Councillor West.
Thanks, Chair. So the things that I'd noted down after looking at the list on 4.2 or whatever it was, were things, scrutiny of the road closure on Corporation Street and why, if it fits under our remit, why no further active travel money was applied for, the Forest of the Future and why it was paid for from the Climate Fund, an update on Beckett Well, an update on empty homes, which is one of the topic review that we did 2 years ago, along with the outstanding items from last year's work programme, and then topic review suggestions. The topic review from last year was regeneration of the High Street. One before that Ian had quite a lot to do with was on sort of homelessness and empty homes, but again it's something that's still not been fully addressed, and regeneration of the city centre. They're all my suggestions.
All excellent. I'm sure we've noted those down. We need to have a look at how we fit those into our agenda, and we may take a short 5-minute break to just slot all of these things in, and then come back to the meeting just to clarify and ratify those decisions. Any others from anybody else?
Could we see a report on land transfers from Derby City Council to Derby Homes over the last 4 years, just see what's been going off there with.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, very quickly, Chair, just some advice from one of the officers. I mean, this is a sort of housing and regeneration committee, and those of us that have been on planning or licensing will know that the main topic out there as far as ordinary people are concerned in housing is the sort of pandemic, you can call it, of HIMOs that's coming up there. Are we in a position to discuss that on this committee to see the impact it has on people's sort of lives, both those that are nearby residents and the people that come and live in some of these HIMOs that aren't really up to standard, and it's affecting some people's mental health, having a little box room, or a loft converted with a Velox window where they can't see anything outside, and they're sitting in that room day and night, and it's having an impact on people's sort of mental sort of side, as well as impacting those that live around them. So I just wondered if we're in a position to discuss that, or certainly have it on the item to look at some of the criteria that HIMOs are being given licenses for, because as Matthew and Joanna will confirm, we only get in planning those that are 6 and above. So anything less than that is being dealt with under delegated powers, or so just wondered if we could have a look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Ian Fulliger to come in on this, because houses of multiple occupation is something that would fall under both a number of areas at the City Council, I think it's fair to say. But I do think that both under Derby Homes, if you like, and planning, it does raise a challenge for us, and I think we should definitely have a formalised report about the not only the number of, but also the impacts and potential changes throughout the years. So a bit like an audit and account, within audit and accounts we would have an update, a regular update of the current position, the historic position, and what we're doing to support people wanting to get out of HMOs as well. So I'm going to go to Ian and ask if that's something that he feels we could potentially bring to this committee in more detail.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely, I think it is, and as you've articulated, it does stretch across strategic housing, housing enforcement and planning, certainly. But as officers, we could certainly bring a report here to explain what the issues are and what is being done. One area that we will be taking forward through the Cabinet process, and you may wish to consider, members, is we have done a stock condition survey of private rented accommodation within the city. The results are quite startling, and in tandem with that we've done a health and housing impact assessment, and that looks at the impact of poor housing conditions on people's health and how they then access the health services and the impacts on those individuals and the cost to the public purse. That wider discussion does obviously tie into some of the comments that Councillor Khan was making there about people's mental health if they're stuck in small accommodation. So, Chair, I think we could either bring quite a focus paper, as Councillor Khan suggested, or we could bring the wider paper which looked at health impact assessments of poor quality housing. I think it's entirely up to you, Chair, but either would be possible.
Councillor Khan, would you have a preference on those, and would those reports be available to perhaps bring to our next meeting and make that one of our, what I'm conscious of is trying to get enough within our next meeting but plan future ones to give officers time. So is that report available, or could it be available, or would you need more time?
I think, Chair, we could do either the focus report or the wider report and have something for the next meeting in October. Yeah.
Well, if it's possible, Ian, I mean, a focus report will at least give us, sort of an insight into what's happening. A wider report, yes, but then, we might lose our objective by looking at everything. So if we can get something focused on that, because at the moment this house is being converted into HIMOs and people are coming from outside authorities to live in them, so it doesn't benefit the residents of Derby in any way. So I would be grateful if you could do a sort of focused report on that, and after looking at that, then possibly in future we could have a wider look at what's happening. If that's okay with you, Chair.
Okay, any other suggestions, anything else that anybody would like to put onto the programme going forward? Okay, I'm just going to wheel off a couple of things that that I myself have considered, had conversations around. I think it would be great to be able to bring the city centre vision and to discuss that in more detail. Smart Park, I think there's some reports that will be available around the progression of Smart Park, the suggestions that are happening at the moment and the wider impact on Smart Park, and the potentially asking for a report on the council-owned elements of Smart Park, but also the historic commitment of the iHub and how that will now impact going forward, and what the plan is for that. And any of the owners involved with Infinity Park itself, potentially give us a bit more of an update of what their plan is for the surrounding area. We don't, so to just see what the overall economic impact of the Infinity Park will be going forward. I had private sector stock condition surveys and health impact assessment reports, so I think we've covered that, and that will be not the focused one as discussed, but perhaps bring that back to a later meeting to go through in more detail. Marketing Derby is already on for us to slot in. I think it would be important to have the proposed A52 junction and the link road in our meetings, bring that forward as soon as possible for us to overview and scrutinise again. And also home energy improvements for funding in homes. The other finalised one that I'd like to suggest is obviously the decarbonisation agenda, and what we as a council are doing around our regen and housing stock. But for our topic review, and this is something that I'd like to put to the floor really, is our social value that we have within our council on all of our elements of regeneration, housing and everything. So looking at what we are doing to the social value within bringing the benefits to us as a city, etc. So I'd like to, do a topic review of within everything relating to our regen remit, if you like, what we can do to support the social value aspect of that and getting, keeping jobs local, all of those things, and what we can achieve within that. Does anybody have any challenge questions or anything against any of the issues that I've raised? Okay, I think we've got quite a few to go on then. I'm going to suggest a 10-minute break, or I'll say a break, an official break, so that we can just slot those into our agenda, speak to the officers to see timescales wise and everything, make sure that that's beneficial to everybody and that people fit in, and look at whether we do need to consider an additional meeting within those items. Is that okay? Thank you. We'll just adjourn. Thank you for your patience there. I just wanted to go through that with our officers to make sure we could slot everything in, try to ensure all our agendas are equally spaced, if you like, with an equal amount, but also that we've got room in there for any upcoming update topics that come as and when. I would like to emphasise that if there are things that anybody wants us to bring to a scrutiny meeting, then we need to look at additional dates, then we can do, and we can do review this on an ongoing basis as we go through each meeting, if there are anything that we want to add to the programme. So I'm going to ask Lindsay to go through those as stated.
Okay, for the October meeting, empty homes update. This is going to be a regular update for every meeting. There's the Smart Park update, HIMO's update, the focused one, Becketwell update. Moving on to the January meeting, 17th of January, we're going to have decarbonation and also an update on Corporation Street, one-way traffic, and the Forest of the Future. A50 Junction update, Marketing Derby update, home energy improvements in Derby homes, and then moving on to the March meeting, 7th of March, City Centre Vision and Regeneration of the High Street, update of what the council is doing, Connect Derby with iHub, impact assessment of where we are at and who is where, and then the private sector housing strategy, it's a full report on that one. We've still got the items for the future meetings. We've got the climate change mitigation beyond OCOL, which is going to be a joint meeting, as I said earlier, and arranged by corporate services, and I'm awaiting a date on that one. I think, Councillor Ralston, the topic review, do you want me to announce, or do you want to put that to vote?
So on the topic review, I think a number of the items that we've raised are within our agenda. I would like to start off with our social impact assessment and a bigger picture as to what we as a council are doing within our remit to ensure our social impact agenda is being considered. Are we happy with what's been suggested so far? Is there any queries, anything that people would prefer us to move dates? Any issues with times and dates that are already in place at the moment?
It probably sort of after the October meeting, when we've seen that, maybe we can then look at an extra meeting to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that comes up, please, if you think of anything throughout the days and weeks leading up to any of our meetings, ping me an email and we'll make sure it's considered at the next meeting. I hope that this is a clear indicator to you guys on the committee that this is a joint committee. It's here to do what it should be doing. It's us working together to scrutinise efficiently and to challenge the officers appropriately in as best we can. So, anything else?
Chair, just a minor point. I see the 7th of March. I won't be here then, not in the country. So if it doesn't change, I will be sending me apologies, unfortunately.
Anybody else, everybody else around on the 7th of March, or is that something we might need to consider in terms of being quorate? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Holmes. We'll note those for future reference.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to point out that on the A50 junction, would you rather have an update on the Southern Derby growth zone overall? Because obviously Derbyshire are the lead authority on the actual junction works, on the road works, but you probably want to have an update on the whole of the project, the context. Yeah.
Yes, please, Ben. Absolutely. It's we appreciate the works themselves are covered by Derbyshire, but it is that wider impact and you know, anything that relates to us as Derby City and the impact that's going to have. It will have impact on our residents, and I think it's, you know, traffic assessments and plans that have been put into place to cover any issues that may come as part of that. Really, thank you. Right, thank you very much for your attendance. As I've said earlier, our future meetings will no longer be 25 minutes or half an hour, so please be prepared. Absences will be noted. Have a lovely evening. Thank you very much for your attendance.